Unexplainable horror. 3 sinister true suburban tales revealed. Cursed secrets exposed. Sarah could feel the weight of the night pressing down on her as she poured coffee for the last customer, her eyes slowly drooping with exhaustion. The diner's fluorescent lights buzzed ominously, and outside, the shadows crept longer in her quiet suburban town, wrapping the block in an unsettling hush. It was the silence that felt wrong. The ominous quiet whispered secrets that made her skin crawl. Once, laughter echoed in her home, but now, it was drowned by the relentless worry over bills and late-night shifts. Would she ever feel safe again? As she nods off, thinking of her kids asleep at home, muffled voices jolted her from her fleeting slumber. Curiosity piqued. She glanced out the window toward the park, not the friendly space she once knew but now cloaked in unease. Peering outside, she saw the flickering glow of lanterns gliding like will-o'-the-wisps. Her neighbors were gathered in secret, their murmurs weaving through the branches like tendrils of smoke. They spoke of families disappearing, swallowed into the darkness, and the word watchers pricked at her spine. The sense of dread coiling in her gut felt as real as the letters on the page before her. What had her once peaceful neighborhood transformed into? Uneasy but unable to resist, Sarah took the long, deserted route home, breath hitching in her throat. That night, as her children breathed softly, the whispering began a chilling caress against her windows like ice wind, each rustle crawling under her skin. The fear was palpable, weaving its way into every corner of her mind. She stumbled out into her yard and froze. Symbols scratched into her perfect lawn, inexplicable shapes that throbbed with unseen menace. She was not just being watched. Her sanctuary had turned into a target and the watchers were closing in. The next day, her heart racing, she hunted through musty newspapers at the library, uncovering violent histories hidden like ghosts under the floorboards. Details of families vanishing ignited a primal fear within her. One chilling article chronicled a family's frantic descent into madness, their diary pages filled with drawings of menacing figures and desperate pleas. Could she escape the same fate? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With fear coiling tighter in her chest, she resolved to confront the threat. After tucking her children away at a friend's house, she marched back to the park. The streets twisted around her, familiar but warped, as if mocking her innocence. The soft crunch of leaves beneath her feet echoed loud in the stillness, sending shivers racing up her spine. What lay before her in that park shattered everything she thought she knew. A circle of symbols, eerily resembling marks on her lawn. They pulsed with energy, darkness seeping through the edges. The air thickened with whispers, wrapping around her like a noose. Distant cries echoed through the night, tapping into her heart with a paralyzing grip. She trembled. What once felt like home now threatened to consume her family whole. The realization struck hard. Her neighbors, once familiar faces, may be concealing nightmares of their own. Panic surged as she grasped the sinister truth. Complacency fed the darkness. An electric pulse trembled in her veins. What awaited her as she stood at the edge of this suburban hell? The ground quaked beneath her feet. Could she trust anyone? Or was she ensnared in a monstrous game? The stakes her own family's safety? The sinister secrets emanating from the shadows beckoned her forward into an abyss from which she might never return. The wind howled through the trees as Sarah stood on the precipice of dread, her heart pounding in her chest. She could feel the pulsing energy of the symbols around her, an unsettling heartbeat echoing in sync with her own terror. Shadows leapt at the corners of her vision, flickering like broken memories, taunting her with visions of nails scratching against wood and chilling whispers floating like ghostly incense. Sarah. A voice called from the darkness, fragile and strained. It was Emma, her closest friend, but the voice rang wrong. There was an edge, a quality clawing at the throat of familiarity, as if it had been distorted by an unseen force. "You need to leave." "What is happening?" Sarah whispered, fear making her voice tremble. She strained to peer through the veil of shadows, the air thickening around her. The symbols bore witness to a malevolent presence. She could feel it. A sinister power swirled, urging her to step back, but she stood frozen, rooted in place by a dread she could not explain. The gathered neighbors, once stark and filled with laughter, now looked like twisted specters. Their faces were obscured by shadows, expressions lost to the darkness. "What are they doing?" Sarah thought, gazing wide-eyed at the circle. The lanterns flickered, casting grotesque shadows that painted the night with horror. In their flickering glow, the symbols seemed alive, dancing and twisting, whispering secrets only the night could decipher. "Leave now," Emma's voice returned, echoing, revealing an urgency to flee. But Sarah's instincts screamed at her to uncover the truth. Would she be just another name on a list of disappearances? Would her children fall victim like others before them? She couldn't allow ignorance to snatch away her family's future. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, and phrases that wouldn't leave her ears bubbled up. "The Watchers feast. Sacrifices must be made. They will protect us." Panic seeped deeper, twisting in her gut like a serpent. What was more chilling, the ritual itself or the fact that they were willing participants? As the images of drawn-out faces and relentless eyes filled her mind, she forced herself to tear away from the circle, backing up, her breathing uneven, desperate to find safety. But as she turned, there stood Emma, face pale, eyes wide with dread. "You have to go, Sarah. They're coming for you." "Who? Who's coming for me?" she gasped, barely able to process the words. But before Emma could respond, the ground beneath Sarah trembled, and a shadowy figure emerged from the darkness, its presence casting a deeper chill than the night wind. It was tall, its features hidden in the veil of darkness, but the malevolence radiating from it was palpable. The whispering intensified, rising to a fever pitch as neighbors leaned toward the figure. Eyes glazed at an unnatural chill tensed every muscle in Sarah's body as the figure beckoned her forward, not with words but with an urging pull from the depths of its gaze. The need to obey, to step closer, clawed at her as dread flooded her heart. "Run, Sarah! Don't let them take you!" Emma screamed, raw fear lining her voice. But the Watcher's eyes held her still. They craved something, craved her. A primal instinct surged within her, breaking through the horror's grip. Sarah lurched backward, heart pounding, fear morphing into desperation. Without a second thought, she turned on her heel, racing toward the park's edge, the chilling wind biting at her heels. For a moment, it seemed shadows danced after her, sinister and hungry. Would she escape? Would she reveal the truth behind the symbols, the whispers, the Watchers? Or would she be just another victim lost to the darkness? Dread echoed in her thoughts, the chase igniting raw panic. But there was something more, something she had promised her children. The torment in her chest turned to resolve as she fled into the night. But in a suburban neighborhood where familiar faces turned sinister, could she truly trust anyone? As Sarah reached the edge of the park, a chilling realization struck. The only way to save her children was to confront the Watchers and uncover the horror lurking in the shadows. The darkness surged behind her, relentless. And with every step she took, a chilling promise loomed: something wasn't finished yet. She may have escaped tonight, but the Watchers were waiting, watching. What price would she have to pay to keep her family safe? Sarah sprinted through the park, branches clawing at her clothes with a fierce intent. She could hear the whispers grow louder behind her, an unsettling echo of the ritual she had narrowly escaped. Each step sent jolts of terror through her body, adrenaline pooling in her veins, making her senses hyper-aware. Nothing felt familiar anymore. The trees now loomed like tall, dark sentinels, blocking out the moonlight and leaving her in an abyss of shadows. She risked a quick glance over her shoulder, praying it would be enough to gauge how far behind the darkness was. To her horror, she saw the flickering lanterns still burning in the clearing, their warm light an ominous contrast to the darkness that pursued her. "Emma!" she yelled, but the name hung in the air, swallowed up by the night. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with an anxiety that felt almost sentient. Her chest tightened as she slowed her pace, straining to catch her breath, desperate to hear her friend's voice once more. The sudden crack of a twig sent her heart into her throat. She turned, muscles coiling with tension, staring into the darkness with wide, terrified eyes. "What do you want?" she shouted, her own voice sounding foreign and small. But nothing replied except the breeze rustling through the leaves, and for a brief moment, the oppressive weight of fear lifted as it reminded her of home. The mundane chatter of life. Children laughing, neighbors chatting, even the hum of a lawnmower on a lazy Saturday afternoon. Yet now, that innocent image crumbled, scorned by the truth she had just glimpsed. A great howl sliced through the night, a sound that was raw and primal, echoing all around her. It wasn't just the wind. Something was out there. Something that saw her as more than just an ordinary woman. Something that hungered. Panic sharpened her instincts. She forced herself to run again, eyes darting to the edges of the path. The streetlights ahead promised safety, yet the feeling of being hunted nagged at her every sense. She crossed into the light, breathing easier in its glow, but the relief was short-lived. Shadows pooled around the edges, creeping closer, and she could feel the weight of unseen eyes scrutinizing her every move. "Where are you?" she called out to the darkness. "You can't have me." The air thickened again, tangible and suffocating. The swirling shadows began to shift, forming distorted shapes that resembled howling faces, mouths stretched wide in agony. Their whispers slithered through the gusts of wind, tantalizing yet terrifying, breeding doubt and disbelief about her escape. What if this wasn't just a chase? What if she was the prey in a game far more sinister than she could grasp? Then it hit her like ice water, her children. They were still back home, innocent in this nightmare. "No more!" she screamed, gathering every ounce of courage as she turned away from the path and headed toward her house. Adrenaline coursed through her, igniting a fire of desperation in her belly. As she rushed toward the sanctuary of her home, she knew time was running out. She had to protect them. If they were caught in this terrifying web of darkness, there would be no returning for them. But as she neared her street, dread coiled around her tightly. Every shadow now felt like a predator lying in wait. Had the watchers followed her? The thought sent a sharp agony through her, a fear more paralyzing than anything she'd felt that night. The house stood eerily quiet under the veil of the night sky, its windows darkened, shrouded in an unsettling calm. She hesitated, near the gate, sensing that crossing the threshold might seal her fate whatever waited inside. She could not fathom. Suddenly, a chill breeze swept past, and Sarah caught a glimpse of movement in the darkness, something darting behind a tree. A shape, too familiar, too formidable. Could it be Emma? Or was it someone else? Now she stood at a crossroads of choice. Should she enter the deceptive safety of her home, or should she confront the evil stalking her? As that primal instinct surged again, the realization dawned. The watchers had already infiltrated her world. With trembling hands, she reached for the doorknob, summoning words that might pierce the suffocating silence. "I'm not afraid of you," but would that be true? As hope wavered and shadows stirred, she could feel the watcher's presence closing in. The price for her family's safety hung heavy in the air, a question that demanded an answer. Was she prepared to pay it? Her hand lingered on the doorknob, the cool metal sending an electric shiver through her palm. Heart pounding, she took a deep breath, steeling herself for whatever lay on the other side. Would it be salvation or doom? With a swift twist and shove, the door creaked open, spilling out a musty scent of dust-coated fear. The darkness embraced her like an old friend as she stepped inside. The air was thick and heavy, pulling at her skin, whispering secrets she wasn't ready to hear. She whispered the names of her children like a prayer, Lucas, Clara, but the house offered no response. It felt more like a tomb than a home as she slipped into the living room. Shadows danced against the walls. Her heart raced when she noticed the flickering of the television. illuminating the corners with brief bursts of pale light. The screen displayed static, a swirling void, yet somehow it felt alive. An unsettling thought crossed her mind. Had something been left on? She never left the TV on. "Mom!" A small voice broke through the tension, soft yet tinged with fear. Sarah turned abruptly toward the source, her breath catching. "Mom, I'm scared." Relief washed over her at the sound of her daughter's voice, but it was quickly overshadowed by dread. Where was Lucas? Ignoring the growing pit of fear in her stomach, she rushed toward Clara's room, her footsteps echoing in the stillness like a drumbeat of doom. "Clara." She found her daughter huddled beneath the blankets, eyes wide, tears tracing tracks down her cheeks. "What's wrong, baby?" The shadows, they're angry, Clara whimpered, wrapping her arms tightly around her knees. "They want to take me. Mommy is here. I will protect you. I promise," Sarah reassured, but doubt crept in like a thief in the night. It was becoming harder to discern what was real. She felt the prickling sensation of unseen watchers pressing against her skin, like fingertips dancing along her spine. "Where's your brother?" Sarah's heart raced anew as she scanned the room. "I don't know, he went outside," Clara sobbed, as if the mention of Lucas had siphoned away all her courage. "Outside? Alone?" Panic surged through Sarah. Without another word, she bolted from the room, racing back through the corridors as fear fueled her legs. The front door hung slightly ajar, creaking ominously. A slice of moonlight illuminated the wood, casting jagged shadows on the floor. Felt wrong, so wrong. "Lucas!" she shouted, stepping into the open air. The world outside was still unnaturally so. The streetlights flickered erratically like they were struggling against the dark tide. "Lucas! Come back!" But no answer met her desperate cries. The silence stretched, taunting her. Moments felt like hours as she stood at the threshold, hesitating. Every fiber in her being screamed to go back inside, to gather Clara and seal the door, but she couldn't abandon Lucas. Taking a deep breath, she stepped fully outside, the cool air cutting through her lingering fear. The branches overhead rustled uneasily, creating a symphony of unease. She moved to the driveway, scanning the shadows, praying to catch a glimpse of her son. Suddenly, a rustling noise broke the silence. A shadow flickered by the edge of the porch. "Lucas," she called, voice trembling. She stepped closer, her heart hammering against her ribs. Then she saw it, a flash of white. Something darted through the darkness, giggling in a way that was both joyous and sinister, a sound that made her stomach drop. Her pulse raced as she recognized Lucas's laughter, a sound that twisted in her gut, exhilarating and terrifying. "Mom, come play," he commanded playfully. Laughter. Laughter in a way that was so wrong. It didn't belong to her son. Fear ignited in her chest, consuming her breath. She looked back toward the house. Did Clara hear it too? "Lucas, please, get inside," she shouted, terror clawing at her throat. The playful tone morphed into something darker. "Why don't you join us, Mommy?" She turned again, the air suddenly electric, pressing down on her shoulders. Shadows coalesced, merging into grotesque shapes that laughed and danced around her. A howl echoed in the distance. Time stopped. The shadows closed in. Was this what it meant to become prey? When she looked back at the threshold, she saw Clara peering out, wide-eyed with uncertainty. A choice laid before her, brilliant yet terrifying. Join the darkness or shield her child from the horrors lurking outside. As uncertainty clawed at her mind, the laughter turned brittle. It was no longer her son's voice. What choice would she make before the darkness consumed everything? The air felt thick, as though Sarah was drowning in it. Shadows moved like living things, and every instinct screamed for her to retreat into the safety of her home. But she couldn't, not while Lucas was out there, tempting the void with his taunting laughter. "Mommy, come closer." The voice, familiar yet twisted, drifted through the chilly night air. It was layered with something darker, a hint of mockery that sent chills racing down her spine. She hesitated, heart pounding, caught between an urge to run to Clara and the desperate need to save her son. Get inside, Clara. Lock the door. She shouted, the urgency cracking her voice. Clara's whimper echoed faintly behind her, but Sarah's focus stayed fixed on the encroaching shadows. They swirled and shifted, creeping toward her, hungry for her fear. Lucas's laughter rang out again, now flirtatious, beckoning. Why don't you come play with us, Mommy? The moment stretched. Cold fingers of dread wrapped around her heart, clutching tighter. Lucas darted again, his form barely visible in the dancing shadows. He was so close, yet so far, his outline flickering with the unstable light from the faulty street lamp. Lucas, please, sweetheart, come to me. Her voice broke, desperation pouring out of her. The path was clear, the safe world inside or the nightmare swirling beyond. Mommy, came Clara's voice again, shaky. I don't want to be alone. The thought of her daughter trembling in the doorway nearly broke her. No, she couldn't leave Clara, she couldn't. But leaving Lucas out there, lost amidst the echoes of darkness, was unbearable. Clara, stay inside. I'll be right back. Taking a step into the abyss, an icy wind howled through the trees, whisking away her courage. The amusement in Lucas's laughter turned to an ominous echo that slithered into her ears. Mom, they're waiting. Sarah's heart lurched. They were waiting? Who was waiting? No, no, no. No. Blood pulsed in her ears, drowning out the haunting giggles. She stumbled backward, shaking her head. The shadows parted like curtains, revealing grotesque figures that twisted and writhed in a dance of horror. Their unseen eyes watched her with hungry anticipation. Panic now replaced soft echoes of playful laughter. What was out there? She choked on her breath, real fear wrapping around her like a vice. Then the figures grew clearer, twisted remnants of children. Their faces were smeared with shadows, their eyes hollow. They pointed at her, mouths stretched wide with grins that showed far too many teeth. Join us, Sarah. Their voices merged into a cacophony, chilling her blood. The fire inside her threatened to extinguish. She turned to run, but the ground beneath her felt alive, gripping her ankles, pulling her back. Back, Mommy. Clara screamed, the sound shattering her reverie. The night rushed in, swirling with despair. She had a choice, to give in to the darkness or break free. Lucas, she screamed one last time, a mixture of love and fear clawing at her throat. I'm coming. The laughter grew louder, morphing into a chorus of torment that clawed at her resolve. But as she surged forward, a flash of white flickered to her left. Something or someone was moving. Lucas. The air thickened, buzzing around her frantic movements as a shadow lunged toward her. A figure no longer just her son, but an embodiment of shadows, laughter, and dread. Time slowed, the ground beneath her threatening to swallow her whole. Mommy, I'm waiting. With one final heartbeat, she leapt toward the darkness, unsure if she was saving him or sealing her fate. But she knew they wouldn't let her leave without a price. The laughter echoed and twisted. Had they claimed Lucas already? As she felt the pull of the darkness rise around her, she prepared for whatever horror awaited on the other side. What if she didn't find Lucas at all, but something far worse than she had imagined? She plunged into the shadows, her body jolting against an unseen wall of darkness. It wrapped around her like 1,000 icy fingers, squeezing tight. Panic washed over her as she lost sight of everything: the street lamp, the house, even Clara's terrified cries. The laughter twisted, echoing eerily from all directions, drowning her in a cacophony of childish mirth and despair. Where are you, Mommy? Lucas's voice faded in and out, disjointed like a poorly tuned radio. It wasn't just playful anymore. It was a lure, a trap baited with her deepest fears. Lucas, she shouted again, her voice stark and frayed. Where are you? Darkness shifted, reflecting her pulsing terror. She felt each heartbeat choke her throat, felt each breath grow heavier. The shadows danced, mocking her efforts. Suddenly, she stumbled upon a small clearing, illuminated faintly by an unsettling glow. It was a circle of light that pulsed like a heartbeat, creating a surreal contrast against the encroaching black. Within this glow, she saw them, the twisted children, lingering just outside the border like wolves watching their prey. They were still, their heads cocked awkwardly, eyes wide and hungry. The sight filled Sarah's stomach with ice. These were the echoes of children, remnants trapped between worlds, but their bodies were wrong, grotesque. The way they moved made it clear that they were not fully human. "Play with us," Sarah, her heart raced. She cast a glance back into the darkness she had emerged from, but the shadows were watching, whispering secrets she couldn't understand. Each breath she took felt heavy with dread. "Mommy, are you scared?" Lucas's voice drifted from the other side of the circle. Sounded so sweet, so innocent, but it was laced with a sinister edge that made her stomach churn. "Stay back," she yelled, forcing authority into her voice. "Where are you? Come to me." As soon as the words left her mouth, the children outside the light began to stir, their laughter morphing into a low, mocking chant. Join us," they advanced, floating closer, their eyes glinting with something animalistic, hungry. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but the chilling truth was, wherever she went, Clara was still alone at home, vulnerable, trapped behind the locked door. "No!" The word burst from her lips, fueled by desperation. "You won't take him from me." With that, the pulsing light flickered. Shadows surged forward, and she felt the mass of coldness envelope her again. "Help me!" The cry rang out, but this time it was Clara, naked fear coursing through her little voice as it intermingled with the mocking laughter. In that moment of vulnerability, Sarah felt a pull toward the darkness threatening to engulf her whole. It whispered promises of safety, of reunion, but its breath smelled of decay and malice. "Don't you dare!" She couldn't lose Clara too. Heart pounding, she closed her eyes and concentrated on the warmth of her daughter's laughter that echoed in her memory. The fleeting moments of joy. "Lucas!" she screamed once more. "You have to come to me." The figures paused, the circle of light flickering. For a heart-stopping moment, she felt them hesitate. She grasped at that small thread of hope, pushing against the suffocating darkness. "We're family. We belong together." Just then, a chilling wind howled through, tossing her hair wildly. Shadows surged forward, harder, faster. "Mommy, please," Clara cried out. And with that, Sarah felt a jolt of fear. The shadows weren't just watching anymore. They were moving, swarming, unyielding. And the laughter, was it Lucas's? Or had they taken him already? "Mommy, I'm scared." Suddenly everything went dark again, a void swallowing her shouts. She felt her resolve waver. In this purgatory, surrounded by soulless children hungry for her fear, she realized she might have to choose. Would she save Lucas only to lose everything? Or would she sacrifice it all for Clara? Just as despair threatened to drown her, the glow pulsed once more, brighter, wrapping around her like a shield. She sensed a shift, the shadow children recoiling. Slightly, "Mommy," but the words hung in the air like a question. Where would she go next? As the laughter pivoted and grew more sinister, she sensed the ultimate reveal was near. They wanted her to choose, but choosing meant defining the horror that lay ahead. What horrific truth would she uncover if she pressed forward? Would it lead to salvation or damnation? The shadows beckoned, and she found herself moving toward the light once more, not knowing what awaited her. The glow enveloped her tighter, panic and determination colliding within her chest. She felt the warmth reach into her bones, pushing back against the suffocating chill of the darkness. For the first time in this eternal night, she grasped at some courage. "Lucas!" she shouted again, forcing the name out with intensity that rippled through the air. "I'm coming for you." The twisted children froze, their heads tilting like birds hunting for movement. The chanting ceased, their eyes flaring with unholy hunger. One of the figures stepped forward, its limbs contorting at unnatural angles. As it broke free from the shadows, Sarah caught a glimpse of its twisted mouth, a wide, toothy grin that stretched too far, too jagged. The edges seemed to glisten with an otherworldly sheen. "Play with us." Sarah, the words slithered through the air, bringing her own paralysis. It was a tantalizing offer, but behind it lurked a sinister truth, a truth that clawed at her insides. No, she spat, shaking her head frantically. She had to stay focused. You're not real. You can't have him. Lucas is ours now. They chorused, a sickly symphony punctuated by shrill laughter. Racing thoughts clashed in her mind like stormy waves. If Lucas was lost to them, Clara would be next. The stakes escalated with every second. She had to decide. This path was fraught with danger, but the only thing worse would be letting her children slip away, become shadows themselves. A sudden flicker in the light made her heart skip. She was losing the battle. She had to hold on. Say it, Sarah. One of the children urged, its voice crawling under her skin. Say that you want to play. Struggling, she thrust her arm out towards the light, feeling a spark of clarity surge through her. I want my children. The air rippled around her, causing the figures to twitch and writhe as if her defiance burned them. But they quickly regained composure, their eyes narrowing into malevolent slits. Choose the word slashed through her. It cut through the noise, silencing everything around her but the steady drum of her heart. She had to face the choice, the horror ahead. Clara, Lucas, she screamed, lifting her legs to join the fight. She stepped toward the shadows, feeling the coldness crawl around her ankles. The laughter began to rise again, an angry tide crashing against her rebellion. It hurt her ears, forcing her inward, making her feel the pull of despair sink deeper into her bones and the cacophony. She heard Clara's voice again, trembling yet vivid in the murky distance. Mommy? Clara. Sarah lunged, propelled by a mother's instinct. She could see vague outlines behind the haze, hear the shuffle of ragged clothes and wet breaths. In that moment she chose not to be afraid. She pushed against the pull, eyes wide open, her heart a drumbeat of resilience. But then, everything began to twist. The light flickered violently, and shadows spilled into the clearing like boiling tar, consuming the glow and swallowing her whole. The deep, resonant laughter rose, echoing around her. Join us after all, Sarah. Join us in the dark. As the darkness swallowed her vision, she screamed. Everything faded, replaced by the oppressive weight of silence. It was almost welcoming, yet she could feel the shadows pressing in insistent, whispering secrets that scraped at her mind, threatening to unveil a truth she wasn't ready to face. Where are they? She gasped, trying to hold onto any shred of hope in the void. But silence was the only answer. Shadows twitched, and the grotesque figures hovered above her, their eyes glinting with eagerness. She had to find them. Suddenly, a sharp pressure began to build at her chest, squeezing tighter and tighter until she could hardly breathe. The laughter returned, mocking, echoing in endless waves. Your choice, face it, Sarah. In that overwhelming moment of dread, she felt the pulse of the circle return, fainter now, but persistent. As the shadows encroached once more, she braced herself for whatever horror awaited. Would she find her children waiting, or would the truth shatter her completely? Desperation bubbled, but so did a flicker of defiance. Sarah had to dig deep and confront the nightmarish truths lurking just beyond her reach. What darkness awaited if she took that final step into the shadows? Would she survive the chaos, or was this her last stand? Time was slipping away. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest, a frantic drumbeat against the encroaching silence. She felt the shadows wrap around her tighter, cold tendrils of darkness searching for her skin, her breath, her resolve. The grotesque figures lingered just out of reach, their eyes glinting with anticipation, predatory and unyielding. Clara, Lucas, she screamed again, her voice sharp as glass shards, cutting through the void. Her throat burned, but she couldn't stop. If she stopped, they would win. I'm coming for you. The answer came not as words but as a rush of wind, a whispering chorus of laughter that swept over her. It twisted her stomach, a confluence of dread and desperation. Mommy, the voice was faint, desperate, a call buried beneath layers of anguish. Help me hold on. Baby, just hold on. Sarah heard the frantic pulse of her own breath, quickened and uneven. She closed her eyes to focus, to shut out the taunting shadows, and concentrated on that faint connection to her children. In the darkness, shadows danced eagerly, gliding in and out of view. They began to form shapes, twisted recreations of her children, their faces warped into horrors. "Is this what you want?" One of the figures jeered, its voice mocking, a sick parody of her daughter's sweet tone. "This is who you're fighting for?" "No." The denial spat from her lips, but the word rang hollow. She couldn't fight this shadowy nightmare and ordered her memories to stay bright and unwavering. "Where are you? Please." As she stumbled forward, the temperature dropped further. Each step felt like running through thick molasses. The chilling laughter clawed at her, rising and falling like a tide. For every breath, darkness pushed back, ready to engulf her whole. Then, in a frenzied burst of instinct, she reached out. The shadow figures recoiled, and within that moment of separation, she found something. A flicker of light flickered deep inside her, a warmth that radiated from love for her children. "Lucas, Clara, I love you. I'm here," she shouted, her voice a battle cry against the deadening air. Holding onto that light, Sarah deciphered the maze of shadows. For every whisper of despair, she thrust her defiance back. The laughter turned frantic, shrill, as the figures twisted, their forms morphing rapidly, trying to adapt to her resolve. They began to lose shape, wobbling in anger and desperation. "Join us, Sarah," they shrieked, their voices dripping with venom. "We can give you what you want. Just say it." But she would not falter, not now. "I want my children," Sarah bellowed. "I will not play your games. I will not join you." Sudden silence fell, thick and heavy, pressing against her. The surrounding darkness paused, as if even the shadows held their breath. A figure lunged at her, stretching a ghastly hand that seemed to swell from nothingness. Heart racing, panicking, a memory flared in Sarah's mind, her children's laughter during a summer night, fireflies dancing under a blanket of stars. Hoping that magic remained somewhere in the black void of despair, she grabbed it. "Your games mean nothing. Light shall chase away shadows. Your light is weak," they hissed back, unnerved. With a ferocity that surprised her, Sarah shoved the memory outward, a beacon against the void. The shadows quaked, writhing against it, struggling to snuff out the light. But Sarah pushed harder, forcing the brightness to swell, spreading warmth. And then, a shriek, a deafening howl that ripped through the silence, echoing long and haunting. Everything in the darkness shook as if a storm had erupted inside the very fabric of the shadows. "You will not take them." With one final, desperate scream, she burst fully into the light. The shadows surged at her, clawing, grasping, hungry, as radiant warmth engulfed her. Blinding brightness flickered. For a moment, she could almost see Clara and Lucas standing there, faces filled with hope, until darkness swam in again. The familiar forms twisted back into shadows, dissolving with her desperate cry, "Clara! Lucas!" Then everything stopped. The silence returned. Only the throbbing pulse of her heart echoed in the dome of darkness. Where were they? A heartbeat passed. In that crushing weight, she felt something shift behind her, a coldness that bore a familiar dread. Something whispered her name. Would the shadows reclaim their hold? Or could she fight back the darkness once more? It loomed closer. The truth beckoned, almost within reach. Sarah hoped against hope it wouldn't be too late. A cold dread washed over Sarah as she turned slowly, her breath hitching in her throat. The voice, familiar yet warped, was like a splinter of ice lodged deep within her chest. Sarah, it drew out her name, haunting, echoing, beckoning from the depths of the shadowy void. The darkness swirled behind her, revealing more of the grotesque figures, now shifting closer, once a figment of her own mind, now a vile reality. They grinned with a monstrous glee, revealing sharp teeth stained with malice, eyes blazing with darkness. "Come to join us?" One figure sneered, its twisted grin stretching impossibly wide. "How long can you resist?" She shook her head, desperation clawing at her gut. She had already fought against their pull, had already bled her spirit into the darkness. In this abyss, there was no daylight, no clarity, only fear. But that fear ignited a flicker of rebellion. "I will find them," Sarah shouted, more determined than ever. The darkness around her quivered as if it felt the force of her defiance. "I will not lose them again." "Lose them?" The shadows mocked, unfurling like smoke. "You never had them. They're ours now." With every syllable, the shadows rippled closer, fingers outstretched like snakes ready to strike. They wafted their sickly sweet scent, a blend of decay and despair, threatening to envelop her in their suffocating embrace. Panic seized her as she stumbled back. The memories of Clara and Lucas felt distant, flickering like dying candle flames. She could almost hear Clara's laughter, see Lucas's bright blue eyes, but the figures drawn from her love twisted them, reshaping them into nightmarish echoes. She couldn't last much longer. Silently screaming, she braced herself against the encroaching darkness. "No," she yelled, though her voice quivered. "Not my children." In that fragile moment, she focused, pulling at every thread of love she had. A golden cord tethered her to her children, a beacon she would not let extinguish. Suddenly, a searing light burst within the warmth of the summer night, the laughter of her little ones, the fervent belief that love could conquer all. She thrust it outward, feeling it swell, pushing against the shadows. "You will not take them." The shrieks of the figures shrilled against the overwhelming light. It tore through the veil of darkness, scattering shadows like autumn leaves on a strong wind. Sarah felt alive, electrified by the magic of her memories swirling around her. But just as hope coursed through her veins, the shadows roared back, the sound vibrating the very ground beneath her. They formed a massive wall, menacing, thrumming with malice. "Foolish woman," hissed the collective voices, a cacophony trying to drown her. "They belong to us. You will never see them again." Then, the blissful warmth of her memory surged forth, forcing the shadows to recede as they shrieked in agony. It was here that Sarah gathered her strength, an unyielding pulse ignited by the thought of her children, her fierce love for them, rising like a phoenix, towering over the encroaching darkness. But then a flicker of doubt crept in. What if she was wrong? What if the shadows were right? With anxiety knotting in her gut, she turned, racing through the maw of fading memories, searching desperately for Clara and Lucas. The shadows howled, relentless, but a realization pierced through her fear. She would not give up. Whether the shadows reclaimed their hold or she found her children, the battle had only just begun. In that moment, Sarah knew she needed a plan, something unexpected to draw the shadows away. But as she spearheaded her thoughts into action, a whisper caught her ear, an echo from behind the darkness, chilling her to the bone. "I know where they are." Who was it? Was it friend or foe? In that freezing moment, Sarah realized the danger was more than just the shadows. They had allies lurking, waiting patiently in the dark. And discovering the identity of that source might just forge her path or seal her fate. The shadows pressed in around Sarah, twisting like phantoms intent on dragging her deep into their horrifying embrace. A cold sweat trickled down her back as she fought against fear and despair. The chilling voice that had pierced the darkness hung in the air, drawing a breath of dread from the pit of her stomach. "I know where they are. Who's there?" Sarah barked, forcing strength into her voice despite quaking dread. But the only response was a sudden rustle in the shadows, a flicker of movement barely beyond her sight. It was like a breath of wind skimming the surface of her skin. She couldn't let it go unanswered. Her children's safety depended on her resolve. As the shadows shifted, she felt something snap inside her. Fear was an enemy she could tackle. She was done cowering. "Show yourself. You want to scare me," she shouted, her voice firm as iron. A figure emerged, shrouded in mist and darkness, its features flickering like a candle's flame. It stood tall, a soft glow illuminating its form, revealing a familiar face. It was Emma, her friend. But the connection felt distorted, tainted. "Sarah, listen to me." Emma's voice was strained, almost pleading. "The Watchers, they're waiting. They want your fear. It feeds them. You have to defy them, push past it." "Emma, I can't lose them. I need clarity." I need my children. The weight of despair pressed against her chest, threatening to collapse her resolve. They're in the light, Emma urged, gesturing behind her. You have to find it, tap into what you love, and you can pull them back. It was as if a floodgate opened. Suddenly, the fragments of warmth and laughter she had clung to surged forward the summer days. The smell of fresh cookies baking, the sound of Clara's soft giggles mingling with Lucas's spirited laughter. They were not lost. They were waiting for her to reclaim them. The shadows trembled at the edges, their shapes flickering with uncertainty. Gradually, the steady pulse of light grew stronger within her heart. You want to take my children, Sarah growled, her voice fierce as she stepped forward, the warmth gathering in her chest. You can't feed off me anymore. With each word, she projected the light, feeling the energy crackle at her fingertips. The more she focused on the joyous memories, the brighter it became, pushing back the dark tendrils creeping closer. The figures of dark children shrieked, repelled by the light. No, they howled, desperate. You cannot escape. They belong to us. Sarah felt the shadows weaken, felt the pull of triumph surging through her. You are wrong. With all her might, she stretched out her arms, illuminating everything around her. The shadows twisted and screamed, but they could not withstand the power of her love. For the first time she felt real, indomitable, free. Suddenly, she turned towards Emma. You too. It's not over until we're safe. This light is ours. Emma nodded, stepping beside her. Together, they harnessed the glow, creating a barrier, banishing the darkness that had terrorized their lives. Lucas, Clara, come to me, Sarah called, her heart pounding as she plunged deeper into the growing brightness, where her children awaited. And there, amidst the swirling light, she saw them. Clara, her sweet face marred by worry, and Lucas, eyes wide, both standing at the edge of the shadows. Mom! They cried in unison, voices blending in a harmonious plea wrapped in innocence. Hold on. I'm coming. Sarah rushed forward, reaching for them, the surge of love clouding the fear that had once paralyzed her. The light pulsed fiercely, and as she embraced her children tightly, the darkness shied away, shriveling like foam pulled from the shore. She squeezed them close, feeling their warmth seep into her, anchoring her spirit amidst the storm. Never again, she whispered, a vow stitched into the fabric of her heart. The shadows writhed and hissed, but with every flickering breath her children took, the light expanded, dispelling the malignant presence. Together, she shouted, igniting a fire within her. As their collective bravery formed a wall, a boundary the shadows could not breach. In an avalanche of brilliance, the darkness writhed and released its hold. Shadows fled, screeching in defeat as they receded into the farthest corners of the night, leaving behind silence heavy yet peaceful. Together, they stepped forward into the dawn, warmth spilling over them, a new beginning unfurling beyond the horizon. The weight on Sarah's heart lifted, replaced with a sense of decisive victory. The street now glistened under the soft morning light, and the familiar sounds of suburbia began to hum again. Are we safe, Mommy? Clara murmured, nestled close. Yes, baby. We're safe. Lucas squeezed her hand. We're together. As the sun rose higher, illuminating the world anew, Sarah realized they had escaped hell. Together, they would share stories about their wrongs and rights, about standing firm against the darkness. Leaving the curtain of terror behind, they embraced the promise of light love, laughter, safety. Behind them, the shadows lingered, whispering shadows, but now they had no power. The truth revealed itself, echoing in Sarah's heart. She had the light and she would protect it fiercely, and as they turned toward home, united and grateful, a flicker of warmth glowed in a far corner of Sarah's mind, a reminder. Love lights the way, even through the darkest nights. Now, before you go, you need to subscribe now so you don't miss future exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and let us know you want more chilling tales. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. I want to hear every single thought you've got. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support means everything,